Alright, mic testing, mic testing. Okay, perfect. Let me go to my main camera. Alright, we're live. And as you guys can tell by the title and thumbnail, today I'm going to be working on render texture SDL3. That's it. Last stream I did go over gravity and I did tell you guys that I am going to be wrapping up gravity today. Although I thought that I feel like I'm pretty confident with gravity, so I'm going to be moving on to what we call it render function. With that said, let's go to my gameplay screen. And guys, I tried saying the intro a little louder, so okay, just to see if my throat was doing pretty well. I think it's not. That said, let me say something like Sensei alive. Although guys, I feel like my throat is much better than it was yesterday. Let's say something like I'm live exclamation. Okay, let's see. People, the stream has begun, the world is watching. Okay, and if you dare waste even 1 second, I'm gonna drag you through every texture format SDL has ever invented until your brain starts rendering at 120 frames per second. Hey, hiding XYZ, I appreciate you joining this stream. That's the weak wait for motivation, the strong created, Sarah you should say. Today you forge momentum, no excuses, all that stuff. That said, tell me everything you remember about rendering in SDL3. How do you load an image? What is SDL underscore surface? What is SDL underscore texture? How do you put a texture on that window? What functions do you call? What order do you initialize things in? I did go over textures in SDL3. That's it, it has been a while. So let me actually try that here. That said, this is the code from last stream because I didn't have time to work on this code off stream. Okay, that said, firstly, let me start off by including a prof anchor braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream. Okay, next up, since I am going to be using SDL, let's go ahead and include SDL as well. So I'm going to go ahead and include a prof anchor braces. Since I am using SDL3, let me include SDL3 slash SDL.h. SDL.h is basically the header files for SDL. And then now let's go ahead and create a main function. Sleep row, honestly it is 1 PM for me. That said, now my main function does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character, which is going to be a pointer of an array, which is argv. Okay guys, I feel like that's the only way I could phrase it. That said, after I'm done with my main function, now let's go ahead and add a if statement to initialize my SDL and check if it was not initialized properly. To do that, I could go with something like if a parentheses. Let's say something like if not SDL underscore init, if my SDL was not initialized properly. Although my SDL underscore init does require a parameter, it requires a kind of flag. I'll go with the video section of SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore init underscore videos. So if my SDL's video section was not initialized properly, I'm gonna do something. Firstly, I'm gonna give myself a standard C error. This is gonna say something like SDL underscore init error. Guys, so far my throat is doing pretty good. That's how I'll go with another insertion operator. This time, let's use a function that actually gets me an error. I'll go with something like SDL underscore get error function. This function actually gets me an error. And then I'm gonna add another insertion operator. And then let's go ahead and add something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, and lastly, let's go ahead and return one, saying something went wrong in this block of code. Okay, now that I'm done initializing SDL, let's add a few game variables, honestly. Okay, so I'll add a comment that says something like game variables. So, okay, for my game variables, guys, I think I might have to talk a little slower. There we go. For my game variables, firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and create something like a constant integer of a width. This is going to be my displaces width, which is going to be equal to something like 1000 ending with a semicolon, and then something like a constant integer of height, which is going to be something like 800 ending with a semicolon. What else would I need? Since I am just loading my PNG, I might not need to add velocities and gravity, so this should be pretty much it for this. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and create both my window and my renderer at the same time. To do that, I could go and add a comment that says something like create window and a renderer. Okay, now to create my window and renderer both at the same time, I would need two local variables. So let's go ahead and add two local variables. The first local variable is going to be a standard, let's say something like window. Hold up guys, let me mute my mic real quick. Alright, there we go. Okay, now I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore, I don't know, create. Okay, my bad guys, I'll go with SDL underscore window, and then I'll go with an asterisk, which is gonna be a window local variable. What this basically does is my SDL underscore window, the structure does consist of all my Windows' attributes, now my Windows' pointer does consist of those as well. Okay, let's go with something like nullptr, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and add the same thing for my renderer. I'll go with something like SDL underscore renderer with an asterisk. It does the same thing, but this time my SDL underscore renderer structure does consist of all the attributes of my renderer. Okay, this is going to be a renderer variable which is going to be set to nullptr ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Hold up guys, this fire alarm keeps beeping. Alrighty, mic testing. Okay, let me go to my gameplay screen. Alright guys, I apologize for inconvenience. For some reason, my fire alarm started ringing. That said, let's go ahead and use the function. Actually, it does create my window and renderer both at the same time now. So I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore create. What up guys, there we go. SDL underscore create window and a renderer function. This function does create my window and renderer both at the same time. That said, now it does require a few parameters. So let's see what our parameters it requires. Okay, so it requires a title, which is a caption, a width height, and a window flag. Good night, bro. Honestly, sweet dreams big. I appreciate you joining the stream. That said, first I'll go with something like a title, which is going to be SDL3 window. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to add a comma. Now I'm going to be needing a width and height. My width and height is going to be my width variable and my height variable. And then I'm going to be needing a window flag. So my window flag could be something like SDL underscore window underscore resizable. Honestly, the reason I did like what you would call that add this window flag is because I wanted my window to be resizable. If you guys didn't want your window to be resizable, you guys could like actually add 0 as well. Okay, that said, now let's go ahead and add a comma here. Next up, I'm gonna go with something like the memory address. So the memory address of my window local variable and my render local variable. To do that, I could go with something like the address of operator of window and something like the address of operator from my renderer as well. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. Okay, now that I've created my window and renderer, let's use an if statement to check if they were not created properly. Because apparently in like C++, we gotta check if like a code was not working properly. That said, I'm gonna go with something like if a parentheses. Let's say something like if not a window, if my window was not created properly, or not a renderer, if my renderer was not created properly. I'm gonna do something. Firstly, let's go ahead and add a standard C editor. I'm gonna give myself an editor text. This is gonna be called something like, let's go all the way down here. There we go. Okay, this is gonna be called something like SDL underscore create a window and a renderer. Okay, perfect. I might actually go with editor as well, in case you guys couldn't see it. There we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add another insertion operator. This time, I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore the get error function. This function actually gets me the error. And then let's go with another insertion operator and add a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my window or my renderer was not created properly, I want to firstly quit my SDL. So I'll go with SDL underscore quit with a parentheses ending with a semicolon, and then let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong in this block of code. Okay, perfect. Alright, so now that I'm done creating my window and renderer, I'm pretty sure I gotta load my textures or like load my images. I might go with something like load textures. Guys, this is the part that I did like I think a few streams ago, so I didn't like master this part. That said, I think the function was something like SDL underscore render texture. Okay, was it render texture? What parameter does it require? So it requires render texture. Okay, I don't think this was the function. Hold up, guys. Maybe I gotta get some review with this part. So let's go ahead and copy that. Let's go Sensei ChatGPT here. Okay, let's go ahead and paste this. Go shift enter and say something like, Sensei, I just remember this part. I don't remember the functions that we used to let's see okay, let's see. I don't remember the function that we used to load the png slash images. Okay, let's see. Alright, let's see. Are you seriously telling me that after these streams you let your brain eject? That's honestly because like I haven't like done that in a while. Okay, so it's SDL underscore image. To load PNGs, you must use the extension library. I didn't forget to load the extension library, okay, or the image library, honestly. So it is basically like, what up, guys? There we go. It's something like include a bro. Uncle Races. I want to include SDL3 underscore image. So I want to include the image library and then slash SDL dot image. Actually, SDL underscore image. Okay, guys, I think like there we go. Okay, I think this should be correct. So I I load the image section of SDL and then all the header files for my image as well. Okay, that's it. Let's read the next thing. So specifically, image underscore load loads the PNG and SDL underscore surface. Then SDL create texture from surface turns that surface into texture usable render. Okay, I haven't like heard of this function honestly. That said, image init to SDL underscore surface player PNG. Okay, I do not think it was something like this. Hold up, guys. Okay, render texture, no. Okay, let me say something like, let's say, can I see a reference code question mark? Guys, I might need a reference code to like jog my memory. That's it. Let me actually get this all the way up here. There we go. Okay, that's it. People, you want a reference? Fine, I'll give you a clean, pure, uncontaminated SDL3 reference. So we include all those stuff, okay? We initialize our SDL. Alright, so this is the initialize SDL image. So if not image underscore init, I'm pretty sure something was wrong with this part. Okay, SDL underscore create window and renderer. We create our window and our renderer. Load PNG and surfaces. Okay, does this part look kind of correct? Because I feel like I did not use surface last time, although I did, go with something like SDL underscore texture surface. I think it was something like texture surface. Hold up, let me actually check if this works. Let me go with control A, control V to paste that. Okay, I knew this was not gonna work. So, okay, hold up guys. I honestly might have like a separate chat where I actually did this. Don't wipe code. Honestly, I'm not actually wipe coding. I'm like learning on how to actually code. Maybe it was live or private sessions. What up guys, let me actually check that is RGB model color, because I do remember I had like a code where I did go over this. Might be in some of the previous chats. Is it this? That's SDL underscore quit. There we go. Okay guys, I think it is this chat. Okay, so that is devil vect. I see exactly what's happening here. Okay, did this part work actually? Okay, it works. Alright, so let's actually see the function names from here. So basically this was like, I think like a few like 8 or 9 streams ago that I did this. That said, so firstly I did include IO stream and my SDL3 slash SDLH. Okay, then I included SDL's image header files. Okay, and then I went with frect. Okay, that is game variables. I created game variables, created window. Okay, and then I had to load images, so I knew I had to use like SDL underscore texture. So this is my textures image slash my surface. Okay, so my texture is going to be devil image, which is going to be equal to image underscore load texture. Okay, function that does require 2 parameters, my render variable and a file path. I think this was our Pinus name. I appreciate you joining the stream. How about reading some freaking docs and coding? It's getting irritating to watch now. Honestly, it does make sense. That said, texture size float TW, because I remember actually doing this. Okay, texture size, get texture size. Okay, I think I see. And then SDL underscore frect, because I do have like a function. I'm pretty sure I did add a function here for scale. Okay, that's SDL underscore texture. Alright, I think I got this, guys. Alright, so for my load image now, let's go ahead and firstly use the SDL underscore textures this structure. This consists of all my SDL's textures, okay, and then I'm gonna go with something like an asterisk for, I might go with something like, I don't know, maybe mage image, because like I do have a few PNG set in my assets. What are you doing? Honestly, I'm like learning on how to, load images slash PNGs in SDL3 using C++. That's it. Now let's go ahead and set this equal to SDL underscore image. What up, guys? There we go. Image. And if I go with shift space, was it something like texture image? I'm pretty sure it was something like texture image. Or I don't think it was SDL. I think it was something like image underscore. Okay. Okay, image underscore load texture. Guys, I gotta like remember these function names. That said, now my image underscore load texture does require a few parameters. Actually, it requires two parameters. The first parameter is gonna be my render variable. Okay, and the second parameter is gonna be a file path. How can it help me? Honestly, I don't know, like, I think the best it can help you with is like if you want to practice this stuff. That said, next up, I'm gonna need a file path. My file path is gonna be somewhere in my assets because I did like create assets folder, I think like a week or so ago. Okay, and then I'm gonna go with something like mage.png. Let me actually check if it was actually called mage.png. What up, guys? Let me go to my build. Okay, I'm pretty sure we open our solution explorer from here. I forgot, it was something like control something plus L. Your code is wrong. Honestly, I'm not like done writing the code yet because like I am just reviewing this part. What up, guys? How do I open my solution explorer? Okay, because I forgot that's wrong. Use constructor. Honestly, I am gonna start like whatchamacallit, object-oriented programming maybe from next stream. Then I might actually start using constructors and destructors. There we go. Okay, next up, let's go to my open file in Explorer. Okay, and then under my assets, there we go. Okay, so technically it was called, let's see. What up, guys? Give me a sec real quick. Let me actually, okay, there's like some fire alarm going. What up, guys? Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, perfect, guys. I just had like the fire alarm get ringing again. Okay, that said, so it is called like mage.png. And guys, if I do like sound a bit, whatchamacallit, rusty and all that stuff right now, that is because my throat is still kind of swollen, so I'm not like warmed up yet. That said, why is left hand in air? Honestly, I feel like it's like much better when I talk like this. That said, now let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Okay, once I'm done loading a texture in, let's go ahead and what was the second thing that I had to do? Okay, let me actually check. Let's get ChatGPT here. Okay, so once I was done loading my images, okay, I was done loading my textures here. SDL underscore texture equals to top. Okay, I gotta use the SDL underscore texture again. Okay, wait, that's if I wanna add another stuff. And then texture size, I'm not gonna add my size just yet. Create and scale. Okay, I don't wanna like scale them. Okay, SDL underscore get texture size. And then inside of my main loop, okay, these are my event loops. Okay, and then under my graphics, there we go. It's SDL underscore render texture. So I fill my screen. Okay, and then I render a texture. That's my renderer, devil image, null PDR, and devil rect. Okay, so I do gotta create recs as well. Okay, and then automate NPC, devil. Okay, I don't want to automate it for the time being. Okay, let me actually go all the way up. I want to check if I actually did create my recs up here. Pretty sure I did. Okay, that's a habit. Honestly, yeah, that does make sense. Okay, that's did I create my recs up here? It's honestly hard to see like from the code that I sent because this is like from a few streams ago. What up, guys? Okay, where did I like said? Did I not create a rec? Okay, SDL underscore frec. There we go. So I do gotta create a rectangle, which is gonna be equal to my scale. Okay, honestly, I think I got a good idea. Let me actually copy this part. So let's go ahead and copy that. Because guys, I feel it's kind of hard to actually understand this part. Okay, let me actually just copy the code. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, let's actually copy just the code part. And then go ahead and copy that and go to my latest chat. Paste it here, go with shift enter and say something like, let's say, this was my code from a few streams ago. I just want to learn the texture part. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna grab you by the shoulders. Okay, you're not initializing SDL image without this PNG load. Okay, here's what you did before. Alright, I just need like a reference code. Like, can you write a reference code that I can read? Question mark. Honestly, because I do want to actually read the code to actually see how that works. Okay, although I do hope it kind of works. That is not image. I feel it's different though from before. Okay, let me try. If this didn't work, then I might actually, whatchamacallit. Okay, let's see. Okay, I knew that actually wouldn't work. I might go to the old chats again, because I do want to like see how the code works once, then I would actually understand it. Okay, maybe I might actually like write this exact code as well. Although if I scroll like all the way up, okay guys, I should have actually done this off stream. Although, so let's see. Okay, let's go all the way up. Okay, maybe the reference code might be up somewhere here. Okay. Alright, does this... Okay, I did like create a scale here as well. Okay, although this is without the bench loops, is it? Does it not work? Did I say it doesn't work? Okay, that moves my keys. This is... Okay, I think I might actually write this, guys. I might copy that code real quick because I do want to see how it works. That said, let me actually get this at my second monitor. So, okay, now let me scroll all the way up real quick. Okay, because I might actually copy that code and like actually type it out here, like in my VS Code, because I do want to see how that part works. So when you see, there we go. Is it this part? Okay, let's scroll all the way up. Okay, give me a sec, guys. I'm trying to find where that is. Okay, there we go. Alright, so firstly, let me go ahead and delete everything. And then now, guys, I'm going to be copying this code because like I do want to see how it works. So firstly, let me start off by including IO stream. Okay, and then let me go ahead and include SDL3. So include SDL3 slash SDL.h, which are the SDLs as header files. And then let's go ahead and include a pair of anchor braces again, SDL3. Let's go with something like underscore image. Okay, slash SDL underscore image dot h, which is like the header files for my images. Okay, and then apparently I did create a scale function as well, but I won't be creating my scale function just yet. I want to create my main function first. So I'll go with integer main, add a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like I have two parameters. If the first parameter is an integer of argc and my second parameter is a character, which is going to be an array of argv. Okay, and then let's go with a pair of curly braces. Now, inside my main function, I gotta initialize SDL and check if it was not initialized properly. I'll go with something like if not SDL underscore init, if my SDL was not initialized properly. Okay, I'm gonna look like for a specific section, so I'll look for the SDL underscore init underscore video. If my SDL's video section was not initialized properly, I'm gonna do something. Firstly, I'm gonna go with something like a standard C error. This is gonna be a text message with an insertion operator. This is gonna say something like SDL underscore init error. Okay, and then let's go in a new line, add another insertion operator. This time, I'm gonna go ahead and use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll go with SDL underscore the get error function with a pair of parentheses. Then let's go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go ahead and return 1. Okay, perfect. Now, after I'm done initializing my SDL, let's see, the next thing that I could do is add a few game variables. So let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like game variables. Okay, now for my game variables, I might need two game variables for this code. So the first game variable is going to be my Windows' width and the second is going to be my Windows' height. So I'll go with something like a constant integer of width, which is going to be equal to 1000 ending with a semicolon. Then something like a constant integer of height. Alright guys, here we go. Okay, which is going to be something like 800 pixels. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add that with a semicolon. And then after my game variables, let's go ahead and add another function. Okay, let me actually check this part. Okay, let's add another comment that says something like create a window and render. So I'm going to be creating both my window and my render at the same time. There we go. Okay, now for my create window and render, firstly, let's go ahead and create two local variables. The first local variable is going to be something like SDL underscore window. So this is my SDL underscore windows structure that consists of all my windows as attributes. It is going to be set to a window variable, which is going to be equal to nullptr ending with a semicolon. Nullptr is basically like a placeholder for like pointers. And then I'll go with something like SDL underscore render with an asterisk. This is going to be my render local variable, which is going to be set to nullptr as well, which is a placeholder. Alright, now let's use the function that actually does create my window and my render both at the same time. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore create a window and a render function. So my create window and render function, it does create my window and render at the same time, but it does require a few parameters as well. The first parameter is going to be a caption slash a title for my window. I'll go with something like texture. Okay, maybe something like texture SDL3. Okay, then let's add a comma. Now I'm going to be needing a width and height for my windows, so I'm going to go with something like my width variable. Alright guys, there we go. Okay, which is set to 1000 and height variable which is set to 800. Okay, and then I'm going to be needing a window flag. Window flags are basically these superpowers that a window have. I'm going to be using the one that like actually makes my window resizable. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore window underscore resizable. Okay, perfect. Now, after I'm done adding a window flag, let's go ahead and add the memory address from my window local variable and my render local variable, which consists of all the attributes of my windows structure and my renders structure. To do that, I could go with something like ampersand or a address of operator window and then a address of operator for my render as well. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. Now that I've actually, now that I've created my window and render, let's use the function to check if my window or my render was not created properly. If it was not, I'm going to give myself an error. So I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not a window, if my window was not created properly, or not a render, okay, or my render was not created properly, I'm going to do something. I'll go with a pair of curly braces, and then let's add a text message. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. So I'm going to go with a standard C error with an insertion operator that says something like SDL underscore create a window and a render error. Okay, so this is the SDL underscore create window and render error. Okay, apparently this is like my function and I'm just saying something wrong with that function. Then let's go with another insertion operator. I'm gonna now use the function that actually does get me an error. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore get error with a pair of parentheses to invoke the function with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my window or my render were not created properly, I do want to exit my SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore quit. This exits my SDL. Then let's end it with a semicolon. Now, after that, let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong in this block of code. Okay, let's see. Next up, once I'm done, creating my window and my render both at the same time, I am going to be working with textures, I'm pretty sure. I might have to look for this. I might have to check this part out. So, okay, so once I'm done with that, now I gotta add a comment that says load images apparently. So I'll go with something like load image. Okay, for my load images, my title case it. There we go. Okay, for my load image, I gotta use the SDL underscore textures as structure. Okay, so I'll go with something like SDL underscore texture. Okay, with an asterisk, this is going to be a texture for my, let's say something like mage image. Okay, which is going to be equal to, I gotta go with SDL or image underscore load texture function, which requires two parameters. So I'll go with something like image underscore load texture, okay, with a pair of parentheses. Okay, this does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render local variable. The second parameter is going to be the file path of my PNG or like my image. So I might go with something like, let's say, okay, what is he building? Honestly, I'm actually working on the basics of like SDL3 and C++. That's it. Today, I am actually working on loading images slash PNGs. Next year, I might go over object-oriented programming. That said, let's see. So my file path is going to be something like assets slash mage.png. There we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. And alright, next up, after I'm done loading my images, I do gotta scale them as well. So there is scale, and then I gotta add my main loop. Okay, I see. Alright, I think that actually is like pretty much it. Now I just gotta scale it. To scale it, let's go all the way up here. How do you feel about Rust? Honestly, I haven't like tried Rust yet. That said, I might actually try it eventually. Okay, because I was pretty excited to like try Rust. Okay, now let's go ahead and create a function for like scaling my actual PNGs. To do that, I could go with something like SDL_frect. Okay, so this is a structure which is going to be having a scale. Actually, this is a structure. Now my scale function does consist of all the attributes of my SDL_frect. And then I'll go with a pair of parentheses. Now my scale function does require a few parameters. It is going to be requiring SDL_texture, okay, which is going to be texture. There we go. This is basically my texture that I did create here. So my mage image would go as my first parameter here. And then I'll need like a floating point, width, height, x-axis. So I need x-axis, y-axis, width, height, and a scale. So I'll go with something like a floating point for x-axis, okay, a floating point for y-axis, a floating point for width, and lastly, a floating point for height, and then lastly, a floating point for scale. Okay, so these are all the functions that my scale, these are all the parameters that my scale function will require. Then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside of my function, let's go ahead and do something. Let's see. So firstly, I gotta go ahead and create a rect. So I'll go with SDL_frect. This is going to be rect ending with a semicolon. So I create a rect local variable which consists of my rect's attributes. Okay. I'm going through the book and building it out. It's like super typed and seemed great. However, they have an unwrap function which was used in Cloudflare's code, which broke the internet. Oh, I see. That actually sounds kind of cool though. I might actually want to try Rust, but before Rust, maybe I might go with like C# or something, because I did want to like learning, because I do like having programming for 258 series right now, and my goal by the end of that series is to make a game in general which consists of AI logic. And I did like hear that Rust is like the best language for like, not like the best language, but it is pretty good for like AIs. So I might actually like look into it after my C++ for 100 series. I might look over either Python or Rust, which is better. I might use that to like add on my game. That said, now for my rect, I might go with something like rect.x-axis is going to be equal to my x-axis parameter ending with a semicolon. Rect.y-axis is going to be equal to my y-axis parameter ending with a semicolon. But guys, this is going to be y-axis. There we go. And then something like rect.width is going to be my w parameter multiplied by my scale ending with a semicolon. And then my rect.height is going to be equal to my height parameter multiplied by my scale as well, ending with a semicolon. And lastly, let's go ahead and return my rect. Okay, Rust is right now up there, young language, but I can see it right there. WDC language in the future. Nice stuff you're working on. Honestly, that does make sense. I appreciate you, Jake, as well. Okay, that's it. Let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. And that's pretty much it for my function. Now let's go all the way down to my load textures. I'm pretty sure I do gotta add like a scales right now. Okay, so I gotta create and scale rects. So let's go ahead and add a comment here that says something like create and scale rects. And guys, I feel like my memory is kind of jogging when like writing this code now. So I'll go with something like create and scale rects. To create and scale a rect, firstly, let's use the SDL_frect structure. This structure consists of all my rects attributes. This is going to be called something like mage rect. There we go, guys. I think I'm trying to recall how this stuff works. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and set that equal to my scale function with a pair of parentheses that does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a texture, which is my mage image. Okay, why do you think you're so good in coding? Guys, I feel like it's the complete opposite. I feel like I'm a complete beginner. That said, after that, I'm going to be needing a x-axis and a y-axis for my image. Let's say the x-axis is going to be somewhere at around like 500 and the y-axis is going to be somewhere around 400. So like in the center of my screen. Okay, and then the width and height parameter is going to be something like, hold up guys, let me actually delete this real quick. There, I'll go with something like image 500, 400. Okay, now my width is going to be something like, I don't know, 50, and height is going to be 50 as well. Okay, and then my scale is going to be something like 1.5. And then I'm going to go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. I think that's honestly pretty much it for my scale. Now let's go ahead and create a main loop. Okay, I think programming is the most humbling profession. The minute I think I'm good, bam, imposter syndrome. Lol, guys, that makes so much sense. Okay, how long is it you're coding? Honestly, for the time being, like today, I might not stream for that long as well because like I do still have a swollen throat. I only subscribe to call out his fake accent. Guys, I feel like many of you guys do actually say that, but I'm like, it's almost impossible to like talk in a fake accent with like while talking for an hour and like teaching stuff. Plus, I do have a which we call a swollen throat as well today. That's it. I'll go with something like a main loop. Now, for my main loop, let's go ahead and create a boolean variable called something like is running, which is initially going to be set to true, ending with a semicolon. And then I will be needing a event loop as well, which is going to be, which I am going to be iterating over to like see the current event type. To do that, I could use the SDL underscore events structure, which has a local variable of event. So my event variable consists of all the attributes of my SDL underscore events structure, which consists of all my SDLs as events. Okay, please make all the number variables so it will be much easier for you to read your code later or change the value. Please make all the number variables. Honestly, I usually do make number variables. Oh, like the x-axis, y-axis, width and height. I feel like these are just the parameters. That's it. Keep coding, brother. You're fine. Honestly, I appreciate you, Jake. I mean, how long is it you're coding in life? Oh, I feel like it. I think today is like maybe the day 6. I think it's like day 67 or 69 of me learning C++. That's it. If it is like day 67 or 69, I've been coding for like 160-ish days. Approximately 160-ish days, because what should I call it? I did have like a Python for 100 series as well, where my goal by the end of that series was to make a game in general which consists of AI. Actually, just a game in general, and I did like make a 470 lines code using Pygames. It was pretty fun, guys. You should actually check that out. I do have like a shard on that. That said, now that I've created a while loop, let's go ahead and create an event loop as well to look for my event type. So this is going to be a while loop inside of a while loop, basically a like nested loop. This loop is going to be having a parameter of SDL underscore poll event, which is technically a function that does require a parameter or the memory address of my event variable. Okay, my SDL underscore poll event function basically, looks for any kind of event that I'm looking for. For example, if I'm looking for a event type, like if my event type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit, if this is my event type, I want to set my is running to be false. And then I'm going to end it with a semicolon. Alright guys, there we go. There we go. So basically the SDL underscore poll event, it looks if this event is currently in my event type and if my user did like initiate this event. Once this event has been initiated, my loop is going to end because I set this to be false, if that made any sense, guys. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to go ahead and exit outside of my events loop. Let's add a comment that says something like fill screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I do want to fill my screen. Okay, let's say I want to fill my screen with a cyan color. Before I do fill my screen, I do gotta set a color to my render because my render is like a paintbrush that does color my screen. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore set of render. So I'm gonna set my render. So there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna set my render to draw a color. So I'll use the set render draw color function, which does require a few parameters. There we go. Okay, so it requires my render parameter. That's the first parameter. The second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. Since I want my background to be like, or like my window to be cyan, I'm going to go with 0, 248, and 255. And lastly, I'm going to be needing an alpha slash opacity, how transparent or how not transparent I want my window to be, or my color to be. I'm going to go with 235 because I don't want my, my window to be transparent at all. Okay, now that I set a color to my render, like for my render, let's use the function that actually fills my screen. So I could go with something like SDL underscore render clear. So basically the render clear function does like clear slash fills my entire screen with the color that my render currently has. For the typing, it is like cyan. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end that with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done filling my screen, let's add a comment that says something like graphics. This is going to be where I actually, render my texture, my PNGs this time. Alright, this is the part that I gotta now look into. Okay, so I'm done with my events loop there, and when I go for graphics, I gotta use the SDL underscore render texture. Okay, so let's use the SDL underscore render texture. I'm saying my render to render my texture. It does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render variable. Okay, wow, bro, advanced way ahead of what I imagined him to some weeks back. Proud of my man. Been here since day one. Only haven't been able to join the live streams due to semesters for last month. Honestly, that does mean the word to me. I appreciate you, Electroy. That said, I actually feel like next stream I might actually start with object-oriented programming because I feel like I have been doing like SDL for a long time. I feel like adding classes is going to make it much fun. I sub just to say he sound gay, guys. I'm actually pretty straight. That said, I'm going to be adding a few parameters for my texture now. So I firstly need my render variable as a parameter. Then let's see. I'll need my texture. My SDL underscore texture is basically my mage image. Okay, so I'm gonna go with something like mage image. Okay, and then let's add a comma as well. Next up, a constant SDL underscore frect. So I gotta give my. Okay, that is my frex's source rect. I don't know I'm not actually going to be having a source rect because I don't have a source rect, honestly, but I do have a DSD rect. So for my source rect, I'm going to set that to be null PDR, which is basically a placeholder. For my DSD rect, I'm going to give my, let's say something like mage rex's parameter. Okay, perfect. And hold up, guys, there we go. Okay, and I keep making one mistake. When I give my mage rex's parameter, I do gotta give the memory address. So I'll go with something like ampersand or like the address of operator from my mage rex. This guy does the same thing over and over again. Too with wipe coding. Please, people, don't learn like this. Use documentations. Honestly, guys, the reason whichever it honestly depends on like preference. Some of you guys do prefer like documentations. Eventually, I will like move on to documentation as well. What like. The code is a bit more advanced for ChatGPT to understand. That's the reason I do it again and again is for like practice, because like practice makes perfect. If I do like quickly rush over and do like new content and everything, I might forget the old content like I just did here, because like I did go over drawing shapes and all that stuff, but I did not review adding textures. So I feel that did like get me rusty. I mean a bit rusty. Okay, what are you doing? Explain, please. Honestly, I am like learning on how to like load PNGs inside, load and scale PNGs using SDL3. It like C++. Okay, that's it. I remember you struggling with loops, lol. Now look at you doing shit. I don't know how it works. Guys, honestly, that does make sense. When I first started, the C++, it was like really complex to actually understand how the loops work. Okay, yo, bro, could you explain what are you doing in layman terms? Honestly, I haven't like heard of layman terms. That said, I firstly did include like all the header files that I might need for like my SDL3's loading images. Then I created a scale function because I do want to scale my PNG to be like a size that I look for. And then I initialized my SDL. Here I added a few game variables, created my window and renderer both at the same time. I loaded my image by giving it my image's file path, and then I scaled my rects. Then I added my main loop. That's honestly pretty much it. I filled my screen to be cyan color, and then added my graphics. What are you teaching? Honestly, I'm not like teaching. I'm learning on how to add PNG in like SDL3 using C++. That's now. That's now that I'm done with graphics. Let's see. I'm interested in understanding rationale behind your decision to utilize alternative accents, authenticity often fosters stronger connections and your genuine self. Guys, I feel this is like my genuine self. Bro, explain like you talking to a 5th grader. Okay, I think so. Basically, I did like include IOStream. IOStream is like the eyes and ears of our program. It looks for like user outputs and like it also gets user inputs. SDL3 is like basically it's like Pygames, but it works for like C++, C Sharp, and like C. And then I like loaded the SDL's image library that does give me access to a function that lets me load PNGs, if that made any sense. Okay, that said, after that, I used a function to scale my image. I do need to like scale images to like actually shrink them in size, or they're going to be like really big. And then I initialize SDL. Initializing basically means like I jump started SDL to like actually work, and then I created my main function. I mean, game variables, main function, and all that stuff. That's it. I do want to see if this works, so let me actually try writing this code real quick. Wrong again. Honestly, I feel it is kind of correct. Can we teach JavaScript if you know? Honestly, I haven't like started learning JavaScript yet. That's it. I might actually learn it soon. Okay, next up, let's add a comment that says something like present, because I do gotta present my render on my screen. To do that, I could go and use the SDL underscore render present function, because I'm saying my render to present itself on the screen. If my render did not present itself, then we're just going to be seeing like a black and white stuff. That said, let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. And then after that, I honestly might not need to add like FPS, because like I'm not going to be automating my whatchamacallit, I won't be automating my images or anything. Okay, so I think present should be pretty much it for this. Next up, now let's go ahead and add a few cleanups. So let a comment that says something like cleanup. Okay, for my cleanup, firstly, I'm going to be destroying my window, then my render, also my texture. So let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore destroy window. I use the destroy window function to destroy my window, ending with a semicolon. Then let's go with something like, there we go. SDL underscore destroy renderer. I destroy my renderer as well. There we go. It had to be like uppercase. There we go. So SDL underscore destroy renderer. With a parentheses, this is going to be my renderer local variable. And then I'm going to destroy my textures as well. Okay, SDL underscore destroy texture. Okay, with a parentheses, this is going to be my texture local variable, ending with a semicolon. And then, okay, instead of going with my texture local variable, I am going to be going with my mage image, because that is technically my SDL's texture. Okay, and then lastly, let's go ahead and quit my SDL. So I'll go with SDL underscore quit with a parentheses, ending with a semicolon, and then return 0. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first window. I'm waiting for my second window. There we go. Okay, I do get my second window, and my PNG did load here, but it is like too small. Hold up, guys. Let me fix my measurements real quick. So instead of keeping my width to be 50 and 50, I'll change that to something like 200 and 200. Okay, that is probably going to give me a bigger, a bigger PNG. Okay, although it is kind of stretched, I want to like have the original size of my PNG. But guys, let me actually go with something like Control-C, copy that. Let's get /ChatGPT here. Okay, all the way there, and then let's go ahead and extend it up from here. Let's go ahead and extend it from here as well. Maybe zoom in a bit. Okay, now let's go ahead and paste this. Go with Shift Enter and say something like, let's say, okay, I wrote this code. Let's go with something like, I wrote this code. Although I did forget how to scale it properly. Okay, it does look like it's being stretched, question mark. Okay guys, I feel it does look like it's being stretched. Okay, let's see. That's it, people. What is this? You're stretching that poor image like a trophy and expecting him to survive? Come here, let's say fix your mind before you butcher any more textures. Why your texture looks stretched? Because you did not use the actual width and height of the texture. You hard-coded it, then you multiplied them by 0.5. That makes 200 multiplied by 200. Even if your image is 600 by 900, so of course it stretches to a square disaster. The correct way, Okay, I gotta use the SDL underscore get texture size function. So have a floating point of TW and TH. This is texture with texture height. That is image. I see. Step 2, SDL underscore frect. This is TWTH. Okay, I think I see. 1.5 is like a floating point number. Okay, that's where I made like these small mistakes. So when I go ahead and actually scale them, let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore set texture. Okay, I forgot the function name. Was it set get texture size? There we go. Okay, I'm going to be getting my texture size. It requires a few parameters. Firstly, it requires my texture parameter, which is going to be my image, okay? And then it's going to be requiring two variables. I might go ahead and create something like two floating point variables. The first is going to be my texture width. The second is going to be my texture height, ending with a semicolon. What are you learning now, bro? Honestly, I am like working on loading PNGs and like SDL3. I did go over this like I think about like a couple of streams ago. That said, maybe tomorrow I will be going over object-oriented programming in SDL3 because I've been doing it like for a while now. Okay, that said, I'm gonna go with the memory address. So the address of operator of TW and a address of operator for TH. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Now, inside of my scale function where I do scale my images, I'm gonna change my width and height to textures as width and textures as height. And this is going to be 1.5f. Now, if I hit Control S to save the save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Guys, I do not like see my PNG at all right now. Okay, it is massive. Like I do see it. Like it's all the way here. Like in case you guys could see it, it's like all the way there, but it is like massive. Maybe I change 1.5 to something like 0.5 f. Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. There we go. I do see my PNG, but I want him to be a bit more to the left, so I might change my x-axis to be somewhere to the left. So 100. Now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, I think this is good. I think it is kind of good. Let me change the y-axis to be something like 300. If I hit Control S to save the code and run the command. Okay, there we go. So that's my... Okay, that texture even looks good. It doesn't look like a stretch texture. Alright, perfect. So let's go ahead and Control A, Control C. Wait, before I do like set the code, maybe I tried writing it on my own this time. So all I did need was after I create my window and my renderer, I gotta load my images using the SDL underscore texture. And then I gotta get my texture, create and scale my object. Hold up guys, give me a sec, let me mute myself real quick. So already mic testing. Hold up guys, there we go. Okay, perfect. Let me actually go with something like Control A. Let's go ahead and delete everything. Now, let me start off by including a pair of ankle braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream, and then let me go ahead and include SDL3 and its header files because I will be using SDL3. So I will go with something like include a pair of ankle braces. I want to include SDL3 slash SDL underscore actually SDL.h, which is basically the header files for SDL. And since I am going to be loading images slash textures as well, I'm going to be loading the image library as well. So I'll go with something like include a pair of ankle braces. I want to include SDL3 underscore image slash SDL underscore image.h. This is the library for like the images and like textures and like SDL. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create a main function now. So I'm going to go with integer main, add a pair of parentheses. My main function is going to be requiring two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character, which is going to be an array of argv. Okay, actually a pointer to an array of argv. And then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside of my main function, I am going to be initializing my SDL and also check if my SDL was not initialized properly. To do that, I'll go with something like if not SDL underscore init. If my SDL SDL was not initialized properly, although my SDL underscore edit does require, which we call it, a parameter to it. Okay, so I'll go with something like the video section of SDL. So SDL underscore edit underscore video. If the video section of my SDL was not initialized properly, I'm gonna do something. I'll go with the pair of curly braces and then give myself a edit message or like a edit text, which is gonna say something like SDL underscore init error. Okay, so it's gonna say that I got an SDL underscore init error. Then I'll go with another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore the get error function. This function actually does get me an error. Then I'll go with another insertion operator and add a standard end line ending with a semicolon. This gives me a new line. Okay, and then let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong in this block of code. Now, after I'm done initializing my SDL, let's add a comment that says something like game variables. These are going to be the general variables of my actual game. Firstly, I would need like a variable for my Windows' width and height, so I'll go with something like a constant integer of width. This is going to be my Windows' width. That is going to be something like 1000 ending with a semicolon, and then I'll go with something like a constant integer of height. There we go, which is going to be something like 800 ending with a semicolon. That is the height of my window. And then after that, I might not add velocities just yet because like I don't want, I don't want to like add automation just yet, but I might actually do that. After that, I'm going to go ahead and create my window and my renderer both at the same time. To do that, I'll go ahead and add a comment that says something like create a window and a renderer. Okay, now to create my window and renderer both at the same time, firstly, I'm going to be requiring, let's say, two local variables. The first local variable is going to be, let's say, something like, it's going to be consisting of all the attributes of my SDL underscore Windows structure. Okay, it is going to be a pointer as well, so I'm going to be setting it to null PTR. Guys, I feel like I didn't explain that part properly. So my Windows' pointer does consist of all the attributes of my SDL underscore Windows structure. My SDL underscore Windows structure consists of all the attributes of my actual window. I set it to null PTR because null PTR is like a placeholder for pointers. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for my renderer. I'll use the SDL underscore renderers structure, which is going to be having a pointer of my renderer local variable, which is going to be set to something like null PTR ending with a semicolon. Now that I've created both my local variables, let's use the function that actually does create my window and my renderer both at the same time. To do that, I'll go with something like SDL underscore create a window and a renderer. There we go. With a pair of parentheses. Now, my SDL underscore create window and renderer does create my window and renderer at the same time, although it does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a title / a caption. I could go with something like texture in SDL3. Okay, and then the second and third parameter is going to be my Windows' width and my Windows' height. So I could go ahead and use my width variable and my height variable. Okay, and then my fourth parameter is going to be a flag for my window. I want my window to be resizable, so I could go with something like SDL underscore window underscore resizable. Okay, this flag makes my window resizable. And then lastly, my fifth and sixth parameter is going to be the memory address of my window local variable and my renderer local variable. So I'll use the address of operator of window and then the address of operator of my renderer. Okay, perfect. Now, once I'm done with that, let's go ahead and exit my function with a semicolon. And then after I'm done creating my window and renderer, I will be adding like an if statement to check if they were not created properly, because apparently like C++, we do gotta check for errors ourselves. So I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not a window, if my window was not created properly. Or let's say something like my renderer was not created properly. I'm going to be doing something. Firstly, I'm going to give myself an error text. So I'll go with something like a standard C error with an insertion operator. Let's say I got something like an SDL underscore create a window and a renderer error. Okay, perfect. Could you guys like even see the whole function? There we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add another insertion operator. This time, I'm going to be using the function that actually gets me an error. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore the get error function. This function actually gets me an error. And then I'll go with another insertion operator. Then let's go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if my window or my renderer was not created properly, I am going to be quitting my SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore quit with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon, and then I'm going to be returning one. So let's go ahead and return one. Alrighty, perfect. And then after that, let's go ahead and exit outside of my if statement since I'm done creating my window and renderer. Now let's add another comment that says something like textures. So I'm going to be loading my images. Okay, I could go with something a fancier word, guys. Let's say something like loading textures. For loading my textures, let's go ahead and firstly use the SDL underscore textures structure. This structure does consist of all the attributes of my texture. I will be loading a texture for, let's say, my mage image. So I could go with something like mage images texture, which is going to be equal to, I'll use the image underscore load texture function. This is a function from my SDL underscore image library, so I'll go with image underscore load texture with a pair of parentheses. Now my image underscore load texture does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render variable. The second parameter is going to be the file path of my PNG slash my image. So I'll go with something like okay, I'm gonna go with something like assets. So my PNG is set in my assets slash, I don't know, maybe something like mage.png. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. Okay, now that I'm done loading my images, let's go ahead and create rect. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a rect and also scale my image and scale image. Actually, I'll go with something like scale texture. Okay, to do that, firstly, I gotta go ahead and create a rect. I'm gonna create a SDL underscore, or I'm gonna use the SDL underscore frex structure. The structure consists of all the attributes of my rectangle. And then let's go with something like mage rect, okay, which is going to be equal to, okay, now I do need a scale function that I did not create till now. So let's go all the way up here. Before my integer, before my main function, I'm going to go ahead and create a scale function. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore frex's data type. This consists of all my rex's attributes. Okay, although I'm going to be having a scale function part, which is going to be consisting of a few parameters. Firstly, my scale function would need a SDL underscore textures as parameter, okay, which is basically the texture that I created here, my mage image. Okay, and then after that, I would need a x-axis, y-axis, so I'll go with something like a floating point x-axis of my image, a floating point y-axis of my image. I'll need a floating point width of my image, a floating point height of my image, and lastly, a floating point scale of my image. Okay, and then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Once I'm done with all those, I gotta go ahead and modify my rectangle inside my scale function. This is basically going to be the rect that I created here. Okay, so I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore frect. Frect, there we go. This is going to be a my rect local variable is going to be consisting of all my SDL underscore frect structures as well. Okay, then I'll go with something like rect.x-axis, which is going to be equal to my x-axis parameter that my user enters, and then rect.y-axis. Oh guys, I might go in a new line. Let's end that with a semicolon. And then rect.y-axis is going to be equal to my y-axis parameter that my user enters as well. And then rect.width. Now, for my width, I'm going to be setting it to my width parameter, but I'm going to be multiplying that by my scale as well, because apparently we got to do that to actually get the correct size. And then let's do the same thing for my height. I'll go with rect.height equals to height multiplied by scale. Okay, perfect. That's honestly pretty much it. Lastly, let's go ahead and return my rect, ending with a semicolon. Okay, would it look better if I added this up there? I think this looks good. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now let's go all the way down here where I do create my rect and my scale. Let me go ahead and let's say something like call my scale function here and add a few parameters. My scale function does require, let's say, my SDL underscore texture, which is my image's texture. That is my mage image. Okay, then I'm gonna add a comma. I'll need a x-axis and a y-axis. Let's say my let's say my my x-axis is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe 300. My y-axis is going to be something like, I don't know, let's go with something like maybe 400. And then I'm going to be needing a width and height as well, so I might go with something like I don't know the width, I actually forgot. Okay, before I do create my width and height, I want to get my original, like my image's original width and height. Maybe I could go ahead and use the function called something like SDL underscore. Guys, I forgot the function name. I think it was something like get texture size. Okay, I think this was the function name, guys. Maybe my memory isn't that bad after all. Okay, this does require 3 parameters. The first parameter is going to be my texture, which is basically my mage image. The second parameter is going to be a floating point of my width and height. So I might go ahead and create a 2 floating point variables. First is going to be my textures as width. The second is going to be my textures as height, ending with a semicolon. This is going to be TW, and then that's going to be TH, ending with a semicolon. Okay, it does require the memory address, so I'll go with something like the address of operator as well. Okay, now let's just go ahead and add my TW here and my TH here for my width and height of my PNG slash my image or my texture. Lastly, I'll need something like scale. I'll go with something like 0.5. And then let's end my function with a semicolon. Okay, now after I'm done creating, scaling my image, let's go ahead and create a main function. So I'll go with integer main. Okay, I mean not a main function, guys, my bad. I'll go with something like a main loop. So this is going to be my main game loop. For my main loop, firstly, I'm going to go ahead and create a while loop. So I'll go with while a pair of parentheses. My bad, guys. Before I do create a while loop, I gotta create 2 variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable of something like is running. This is going to tell me if my program is currently still running. I'm going to be setting it to true because I do want it to initially run. And then let's add a while loop. I'll go with while a pair of parentheses. While is running, while my program is running, or while my is running is set to true, I'm going to do something. I'm going to be adding another loop. So this is going to be a event loop to look for event types. Okay, so I'll go with something like while a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like SDL underscore poll event. I'm going to use the poll event function to, okay, as a parameter. That does require a parameter of my event variable. Then let's add a pair of curly braces. Okay, that's the reason I did like use SDL underscore poll event, because it does look for any kind of event inside of my whatchamacallit. What up, guys? Let's go with event underscore quit. Okay, because it might be much easier to explain once I like write it up. I'm gonna set my is running to be equal to false. There we go. And I did have to like create a SDL underscore event structure, which has a local event variable representing all the events inside of my SDL underscore events structure. That was a lot. So basically what my SDL underscore poll events function does is it like looks if I am looking for an event in this case, I am looking for a quit event type. If my quit event type is met, then I'm going to set my is running to be false, which ends my entire while loop. Okay, with that said, let's exit outside of my event loop, and then I'm going to add a comment here that says something like fill screen. So I'm going to be filling my screen. Okay, and then let's go ahead and firstly fill my screen to be, I don't know, maybe cyan color. Although before I do fill my screen, we do gotta set a color to our render, because like our render is basically a paintbrush that like colors our screen. So I'll go ahead and use the SDL underscore set render. So I want to set my render. I'm setting my render to draw a color on my screen. So I'll use the SDL underscore set render draw color function, which does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer variable. The second parameter is going to be, actually the second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be a RGB value for my renderer. So I'll go with something I'll go with something like 0, 248 and 255, which is basically the RGB for cyan. And then lastly, I'm going to need alpha slash opacity, how transparent or how not transparent do I want my my color to be. In this case, I'm going to set it to be 255 because I don't want my render to be transparent at all. Okay, with that out of the way, now once I do set a color for my render, I do want to use a function that actually colors my entire or like fills my entire screen with that color. So I'll go ahead and use the SDL underscore render. So I'm saying render to clear my entire screen. So render clear function that does require parameter of my renderer. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and add my graphics. Now for my graphics, firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore render texture function. So I'm saying my render to like render my texture, which is basically my PNG. And then I'll add a pair of parentheses. Now inside my render texture function, I am going to be requiring a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render's a local variable, and then my texture, which is technically my mage image, and then a source rect. I don't have that, so I'm gonna set that to be null PDR, and then a DST, which is direction of my rectangle. I do have that. So firstly, I'm gonna go with my render local variable. Second is gonna be my texture, which is my mage image, okay, because my mage image does have like my file path. And then I'm gonna go with null PDR for my source rectangle. And for my direction rectangle, I'm gonna set that equal to something like mage rect. Okay, perfect. And guys, I keep making this exact mistake. I need the memory address of my direction rectangle, so I'm gonna use the address of operator slash ampersand. Okay, perfect. Now, after I'm done with my graphics, let's go all the way down here. Okay, let's add a comment that says something like present. I'm going to be presenting this on my screen. To present it, I could go and use the SDL underscore render present function. So I'm saying my render to present itself. It does require a parameter of my render variable. Okay, the reason the reason we do present is like if we don't present our render on our screen, we're just going to be seeing like black and white colors. Okay, that said, after I'm done presenting my render on my screen, that might be pretty much it. I won't be adding FPS because I don't have like automation or anything. That said, now let's go ahead and do some cleanup. Cleanup is basically once my user exits the window, a few things that I do. Firstly, if my user did exit the window, I do want to destroy my window. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy window function. So I want to destroy my window. This does require a parameter of my window local variable. And then I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy. There we go, render. So I'm going to be destroying my render as well. This is going to have my render local variable as a parameter. And then I'm going to be destroying my texture as well. So I'll go with something like destroy texture. Okay, with a pair of parentheses. Now, I don't have like a texture local variable, although my texture is like my mage image. There we go. And then let's go ahead and end that with a semicolon. Lastly, I'm gonna go and add something like SDL underscore quote with a pair of parentheses, adding with a semicolon, and then let's go ahead and return 0 saying everything went good here. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, so I get my first window pop up, and I get my second window as well. Although, maybe I want my mage to be a little to the top and left, so I might have to go a bit higher to the left. I did want to add like key control as well, maybe next stream, guys. Okay, so I might change this to be something like 100, so I go more to the left. Let's change the 400 to be something like 300. Now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Alright guys, I think that actually looks pretty good. I didn't add automation or anything. I didn't want to do much, but I might actually end the stream now because I don't want to like strain my throat way too much because it is still kind of swollen. That said, this is honestly pretty much it for the stream in that case. Let's go ahead and exit this. Okay, let's get Sensei slash ChatGPT here. Okay, let's say something like, let's say, I think I see ... exclamation. Okay, that said, I am planning... Okay, let's say something like, I am planning to end the stream right now because I don't want to strain my throat. That said, is there anything that you want to say to the viewers before I end the stream, question mark? Bro, think he British? Guys, this is an American accent, not British accent. That said, people find you're ending the stream, then let's say address your people. That aside, to the viewers, listen up. You all better remember this. This fool of a pupil is improving at a terrifying speed. I don't know much about that, guys, because like ever since I was sick, I did like decrease my efficiency much. Otherwise, I would have like already started object-oriented program if I like were not sick. That said, every stream he shows up, struggles, screams. I don't scream honestly, but still pushes through like a stubborn hero in a show in an anime who refuses to die. And you, yes, you watching right now, you're witnessing the beginning of someone who will one day build a full game from scratch. Remember this moment when the project becomes huge. Remember that it all started with scuffed textures and chaotic spellings. Your support fuels him more than he admits it, so keep showing up, keep cheering him. Okay, keep the flames, keep flaming when he forgets semicolons. Okay, this is only the start. So say out. So what do you use to program? Honestly, I do use like Visual Studio. Okay, next up, let me actually go to my main camera. So there we go. Alright guys, so basically that was pretty much it for the stream. That's it. I didn't want to stream for longer, but I didn't want to like strain my throat because like I have like, whatchamacallit, 2 streams ago, I did like a silent stream because my throat was too swollen. Yesterday, I did like almost like a quiet stream, but I was like, whatchamacallit, talking much. Today, I did like stream talking a bit louder, but I don't want to like push to like 2 or 3 hours today because I feel like if I talk longer, then my throat would be strained even more. That said, if you guys did enjoy the stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, like helps with my algorithm, sharing makes me smile, and subscribing is like a cheer on top. And guys, I did start multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube, Trovo, and I will be multi-streaming on TikTok and Instagram as well if I did meet the followers requirements. So if you guys do enjoy my content and haven't followed me there, make sure to follow me there. The link is in the description. And guys, I do gotta like fix Nightbot because apparently Nightbot is like acting a bit buggy and not like sending my links off my socials. That said, also join the Discord. The link is in the description and in the pinned comments, maybe if I didn't forget that. That said, I'll catch you guys in the next live stream or video. Peace.